Hey folks, it is November the 6th, and we're talking about the last part. Now, that hasn't been built yet. We're talking about the last part of chapter 20, which has to do with the end of Alexander the Great's conquest and also his death. They kind of breeze through this part pretty quickly, so I'm going to try to describe a bit more of what happened. And then take our notes, and we'll be done with ancient Greece for now. Now, we are going to do a reading over the life of Alexander the Great by Plutarch. It's a very short biography, kind of like the ones we read before. I'm going to post that when I'm done editing it. And next week, we're going to have a test, and I'm hoping on Friday we can start with ancient Rome. So let's see here. The terms we have on the board is just a few. We have Bessus, further conquest by Alexander, Alexander's death, and the empire after his death. All right, folks, so when we left off last time, Alexander had defeated Darius in multiple battles, and like some of the big ones were like the Battle of Issus, the Battle of Arbela, and after the Battle of Arbela, Darius was on the run. And when he was on the run, at first, he was being protected by one of his head guys, his head nobles, by the name of Bessus. But Bessus plotted a coup. And so they actually captured Darius. And when they captured him, they're going to, they have an idea that if they could just keep him alive, they can use him kind of like as a figurehead while Bessus was in charge and becomes a new king. Alexander, and especially his lead general, Ptolemy, were hot on the trail. And whenever Bessus found that they were about to be caught by Alexander's troops, him and his soldiers set Darius aside and they threw spears into him. They were so scared of getting their hands dirty, killing him. They took a cowardly act by throwing spears into their king. And so there's different accounts of what happened next. Some accounts are that the soldiers found Darius already dead. Some are that when he came up to Darius, he basically said, you know what, Alexander, you're an honorable guy and you can have my kingdom. We're not really sure what happened, but in any case, Bessus was then captured. And Alexander was extremely mad because he's a king. And so was Darius, though he was his enemy, bless you. The idea of somebody slaying their own king was seen as like sacrilege. It's called regicide. It's from the Latin words rex regis for king, and kide to kill. So he killed his own king. So after that, Alexander is going to take Bessus. They're going to strip him down to nothing, put him in chains, and literally force march him all the way back to the capital, Persepolis. And there he's going to be publicly executed. Yes, sir.
All that work just to die.
So, I looked up Alexander's death and it said natural causes, but how could it be natural causes if he was young?
Well, he was young, but he
an illness, man.
Yeah. So he died of illnesses. So he got illnesses. So we think he caught like something like dysentery or something, because the accounts of when he died, not only did he have a fever, but he also had like extreme diarrhea and vomiting.
Stage 4 going on to stage 5.
Or malaria. But the thing is, because he had so much diarrhea and vomiting, some accounts think that it was dysentery from like getting dirty water in him when he was swimming in the Tigris and Euphrates, because they would let animals go in there while they're waiting in there, kind of poop in it, and that can make bacterial growth that's very
Ebola,
like cholera, dysentery, stuff like that.
Ebola was a big thing.
But another thing too, his immune system was compromised because he was a binge drinker. He had a lot of severe, serious injuries that would have killed a lot of people in battle. So that was okay.
Well, stab wounds.
Yeah, stab wounds, multiple arrow wounds, a broken collarbone. He's had concussions and knocked completely unconscious a few times. So yeah, he had a rough life, but it's what he wanted. So And they also, and there's also some historians think that because of multiple concussions and also today we would call PTSD, he was suffering from a lot, like that might have been why he had such
Imagine how many
alcoholism.
soldiers suffered from
So
PTSD and
that might have
didn't
been,
even know.
hey, folks, y'all gotta stop talking over the teacher when the teacher's talking, okay? We can have a conversation, now give you a time to talk, but you can't talk over me, especially when I'm recording it, okay? Is that cool? Is that cool? Is that cool?
Yeah.
Is that cool? Okay, so yeah, I mean, like they think he might have had a lot of trauma, like just all the death and stuff. He had anger problems and stuff, which is another sign from it. Of course, it's also a sign from alcohol abuse. So yeah, I mean, it was pretty messed up. But speaking of, now that he was done with this main conquest of Persia and he did what he set out to do, he went to Persia and he started adopting a lot of the Persian customs. So he started wearing Persian crowns. Greeks didn't wear crowns. That was seen as something that was like Eastern to them, like foreign. He took on a Persian wife, and who was actually I think it was either one of the daughters or the wife of Darius. And he started asking his men to do the same thing, to start integrating into Persian society. His common soldiers were disgusted by this. They hated Persians. They thought they were barbarians. And so one story goes, he's getting really frustrated. So in one of his nights of binge drinking, a woman asked him, like, if he's so rich, why doesn't he just burn down like the palace of Darius? And the story goes is he actually did it on a whim. He actually burned down like a palace that was so like expensive. It was almost considered one of the wonders of the world. And we're not sure if that was because he set it on fire or if it was an accident.
It would have been a pretty big fire.
Well, it did burn down. We know that. So, following all this kind of stuff, he kind of decided he didn't really need to sit still. Going out and campaigning, going out and fighting was in his blood. So he got his troops together for another conquest. See, the thing is like we mentioned before, Persia was so big and so diverse, guys, that it wasn't unified. And so the people who were not Persians, like the people who lived in Afghanistan, the people who lived in Arabia, and the people who lived in India, didn't really care less about Darius or the Persians. They wanted to be free. Alexander, however, wanted to consolidate it for himself. So he marched his army first to Afghanistan. And when they were there, they found that it was really tough fighting these people. They lived in mountains. They did a lot of raiding. They never stuck around and fought in one place. He faced a lot of casualties there. He wound up winning a lot of the region, but it turned out to be even harder than fighting the Persians. When he went to India, he's going to face, let me see here. Yeah, like not just war elephants, but when they get to India, they're going to find that how they fight is very different too. They're going to come across jungle. All of a sudden, Greeks who are used to the Mediterranean climate are going to find that the flora, the animals are different. He's going to come across and actually meet like Hindu priests and philosophers. He's going to be fascinated with them. They're going to find that a lot of the warriors there, they're very skillful warriors. They're going to find that they're much better trained than the Persians. And they do things like they fight with poison-bladed weapons. They have elephants and stuff like that. The warriors are much more willing to fight to the death than the Persians. So they're going to have very hard-fought battles. Some of Alexander's most grievous wounds are going to be while fighting in India.
He didn't make it to China. Dang.
No, he didn't make it to China. He didn't even make it. He made it halfway through India, all the way to the Indus River, and to the Indus River, down the river. They're going to get on their boats and they're going to sail to Arabia. And after they're in Arabia, he's going to challenge his men, even though he could have took boats all the way, pretty much all the way back to Greece. cutting through the Red Sea and then marching a little bit across the land, an area he already owned. He actually chose to march across the desert. He saw it as stubbornly. Yeah, he didn't gain anything from it, but he saw it as a way, like another way of proving himself. And so, yeah, they would just go days marching across the Arabian desert, going without water. This is a golden plaque of Alexander's forces fighting Scythians in modern day Afghanistan. So it was like really tough battles there. Here is, this is a painting that's going to be made much later of him fighting in India. So here's the elephants, see Indian soldiers with bows. Yeah, they're going to find that India is a much more impressive set of armies than the Persians. But the thing is, whenever he makes it to the Indus River, he wants to push on. He starts hearing rumors of China, but his men wanted to turn back. Many of them have been campaigning for like 10 years. It's just constant fighting. They haven't seen their families in forever. They're going to find that they weren't prepared for the jungle either. The humidity is so high that a lot of their weapons, they can't keep them oiled enough. They're falling apart from rust. Their armor is rotting, like the leather's rotting off. They don't have any supplies to replace these things. So many of the soldiers. Say what?
How long were they in the rainforest?
What, huh?
How long were they in the rainforest?
I'm not sure. But like the stories were, is like many of them, like they just didn't even have equipment anymore. They were so war battered and were just falling apart. Their spears, their swords, everything. Before he makes it to India too, we're going to have the first known discovery of oil. While he's marching along, they're actually going to come across a natural bubbling spring of black oil. They're going to find that it's flammable. They think it's pretty interesting. They don't know what to do with it. This picture's inaccurate. This is actually, but yeah, they're going to come across.
You just see one thing.
America's
They're going to come across, of course, elephants, and they're going to get very good at fighting elephants.
So you're telling me these guys stumble upon some weird black liquid and they immediately think, hey, let's light it on fire.
Well, no, I think they found out from the locals. Like, hey, look, we put it in our lamp, like they put it in their lamps and stuff like that.
Oh, I thought
But
they just like
burning straight oil, like petroleum from the ground, it's like dirty. It's like stinky, nasty, smoky stuff. So,
Like burning a tire.
I thought some guy
It's
just tripped
burning
over.
tires.
But
yeah, it's
then
like
must
burning a
have been
tire,
like,
yeah. It's
And now here
nasty.
we are, global warming. Epic.
oh yeah, he's over there screaming, burning to death.
All right, so here's the story of him marching across the Arabian desert. So, as he marches, he's going to make a challenge to some of his men. He's like, hey, whoever can find me water, go ahead and do it. And so some men risk their lives, and they finally found a little puddle, and they fill up one of their helmets with it and bring it to him.
And dumps it out.
And when he sees that there's not enough for the rest of his men, he decides to dump it rather than and you got to remember, this is part of his leadership style. He shares the hardships of his men. Like he
But
fights with
imagine
them.
these
he
guys
marches
just
with
being
They
them.
could have given a slip to each one, just
Look at the turn.
It's symbolic.
He's like, what?
I was like,
What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm sure that they all wish it was for them.
Well, if you're not gonna drink, don't waste it.
I'm pretty sure some.
Yeah, There's definitely enough for like
How they all
at least
their
like
moments
20 of them to
water.
take a sip and
It
pass.
wasn't enough. There was just a little puddle they found somewhere in some rocks. So yeah, his death. We know that he had fever. He had a lot of fluid loss. He couldn't stop throwing up whenever he drank
That's
stuff.
him in that like dress.
It's a
Look
pretty
at
good
this.
sign of cholera.
Yeah.
It could be a sheets.
That looks like
one
a
of those
dress.
soldiers had to take
It looks
sip
like a
from that
wedding.
bottle. Just a little
He's
sip.
getting married.
Now, the problem is when he died, however he died, whether it was through poison or if he had something else going on, we're not 100% sure because we weren't there. We don't have that good of records. And like I told you, 2 of the primary source accounts don't exist with us today. Only one, the one from Arian. So his generals are there. They know he's very sick for days on end. And
He died of malaria.
the story goes, one of his head generals Pelopidas is his name, comes out of the room and says, Alexander told me I'm to be the next king, and he gave me his royal signet ring. And so the other generals, however,
They're like, you just stole it from his corpse.
yeah, they didn't believe it. So you're going to have a civil war after this, where you're going to have what they call the time of the general kings, the diadochoi. And so now, at first, they're going to make a temporary peace, where they're going to split up Alexander's empire. You have one in Macedonia, one in Greece, one in the eastern part of the kingdom, like Persia and Asia, and one in Egypt. The one in Greece and Macedonia are going to form together pretty quickly. The one in Asia is going to really get whittled away because the people in India are going to break away quickly, and then the other regions, until essentially it just moves down to the Middle East and Syria.
And then Rome just kind of.
Well, it will. They kind of threw that part in a little too quick, but so we got- so let's see, there's Alexander. All right, so in this battle, you're going to have phalanx versus phalanx. You're going to have very war-hardened, experienced soldiers and generals all of a sudden turn on one another. There's going to be a lot of intrigue. You're going to have a lot of palace assassinations, wars all throughout Greece. The Greek city-states are constantly going to be divided on who they join with. There's going to be some of the largest naval battles in history up to this time. But the thing is that this time in history is largely ignored by historians because Alexander was so great, and then Rome is coming up, and people like to focus on that. But let's see, this is again Alexander in India, the death of one of the Indian kings he's talking to. So, but yeah, the time of the diadochoi, this is where you have the birth, essentially, of what we call the monarchies. So, like I told you, Persian kings would do things like what we call kowtowing. That's essentially bowing down and putting your head on the floor or kissing the floor in reverence of a king. Kings would sit on thrones and wear crowns. You're going to start seeing that the generals of Alexander are going to start doing these things. All of a sudden, they're going to be kings wearing crowns, having thrones. They're going to no longer be connected with the people. Instead, they're going to have castles with royal courts where only their their nobles are going to, and the people who they hire are going to be surrounding them. They're going to be completely more like Eastern kings than, like, say, Greek tyrants. So though this is the biggest and the richest, the one that goes to Antigonus, he's going to be the guy who's going to kill Pelopidas. This part's going to get cut off very quickly, and it's pretty much just going to get centered around here after a while. Cassander is one of the generals. Lysimachus. Ptolemy is going to be the only one that's going to make a lasting empire, that's going to last all the way till Cleopatra, who's going to wind up dying whenever the Romans come and take Egypt.
Well, she murdered too many.
Well, and we'll get to that later.
Didn't Cleopatra she was in love with someone?
She's in love with Caesar and had his kid, and then she was in love with Mark Antony and had his kid. And then when Mark Antony was losing, she tried to seduce Octavius, but
She wanted lots of good successors. And she thought success came through genetics. Common mistake.
So, folks, hey, let's wrap it up. So yeah, during this time period, you're going to see a lot of cruelty, Greek versus Greek. Now, all of a sudden, the Greek armies are going to have access to elephants. And there's going to be one point where one of the diadochoi, hey guys, remember, we're almost done. One of the diadochoi here, the one in charge of Syria, he's going to try to invade Egypt. And he's actually going to take so many elephants. They're going to try to use elephants to like wade into the Nile and actually block off the river so that the rest of the army can walk behind them. They're going to find it doesn't work, but still, it just goes to show how big their armies are. One of their biggest modes of execution is they're going to adopt
Elephant
elephants.
crushing?
Yeah, on people's heads. Like,
They
Like a
know it's
grape.
like what they do. Okay, sorry, like it's I watched one of those videos, okay, where it just tells you random stuff. And one of them was about like how they would do the elephant torture method. They would make their elephants like step on every bone in the body,
Ow.
and then they would break the head.
Well, it's
They would finish, finishing move.
Like a little gusher.
the accounts I read were during this time period they just popped their head. Now here's one thing too. Like I told you, there was a cult of Alexander. His body was considered like a holy symbolic thing.
So they just
So
carried
they
around his
carried that
corpse
thing
everywhere.
around?
No, actually, what happened is his corpse was back in Babylon, but Ptolemy, the new the king now king of Egypt, is actually going to steal it and bring it to Egypt, and they're going to build a big temple there. In fact, even Julius Caesar and the Romans, they're going to make pilgrimages there and go visit his tomb later on in Alexandria.
You could have just had
So yeah, once again, lots of elephant warfare,
it.
Greeks versus elephants, marching down the desert, and it must have really stunk for these poor things because these are Indian elephants. They're not made for the desert like African elephants are. This is a Greek sculpture. This is a Greek bust of Ptolemy. Here is him in Egypt form as pharaoh. He's going to adopt Egyptian culture very, very quickly. He's going to find that it's very nice to be a pharaoh. He's going to pass it on to his kids. The art during this time frame throughout Greece,
Is that supposed to be an angel?
this is I forgot what this is.
With
I
the
think
head,
it's
without a head.
okay. I remember. Well, hold on. Let me answer. Okay, so it broke apart over time, and this is supposed to be a statue of Nike, victory. And see, it's
Nike.
the reason I'm showing it is because it's different from other Greek art. Greek art in this time becomes more flowing and emotional. So like, so see, it's like
Yeah,
it's, like,
so
it's even
flowing and emotional.
it's like silly in some ways because no longer are like people standing in perfect postures or like
Looks like
stoic without emotion and stuff like that.
It makes it better because
Instead, hey folks, I'm telling you, if I have to ask people to stop interrupting me again, we are going to have consequences. Okay? So, hold here just a second. Let me finish. So, like this is from a famous one called The Boxer. It's one of the few like originals we have left because most of the ones the Greeks made were actually made of bronze. And here he has like you see he's like where he's gnarled up, he even has like scars and stuff like that. Boxing back then was very deadly. They would band their hands up with hard leather, and you didn't win a boxing match until the other guy couldn't move anymore. And usually the other guy couldn't move anymore because he died. Here's another famous
This is
one.
fight to the death.
So yeah, like this isn't a perfect horse. Like it's all like skinny, but it's like it's leaping forward.
it looks.
And that's me all
God,
time.
I'm pale.
All right, so you might wonder why I had this in here. One of the consequences of Alexander the Great's conquest is that like India had been broken up into little small kingdoms. But when Alexander came in and totally like beat up half the armies in India, from the east, you're going to have a new ruler come over and unify most of India and found what's called the Gupta Empire. This is its founder, Chandragupta. And then it's going to be, after he takes over India, it's actually going to spark a golden age of Indian culture. And a lot of things that are in India, they're actually going to adopt parts of Greek culture. Some of their methods of warfare, they're going to start adopting some of their philosophy. They even, some historians think that this is where India got its first martial arts was from the Greeks who came and founded cities after Alexander, and then it moved on to China, which is eventually going to become stuff like Kung Fu. And so there's going to be a lot of influence from Greece to India to Asia. Eventually, however, like the book said, the phalanx is going to be defeated barely by the Roman legion, but it's going to be enough to where the Roman legions are going to become the dominant military power of the region. And we'll of course talk about that when we talk about King Pyrrhus later on. So Alexander is going to form a lot of Alexandrias. There's going to be a lot of Alexandrias. Usually we just talk about the one in Egypt, but yeah, he just kept naming cities after himself.
You search up Alexandria and you find one in there.
Pretty much back then, yeah. And see, here it goes all the way into India right here. And that's going to give so yeah, if y'all have questions, it's fine now, but like y'all gotta stop interrupting me. Come on, that's like rude. If you did that at Thanksgiving, somebody should throw a turkey at you. All right.
No, Israel.
The one with the
Israel existed back then. Israel existed way before all this.
this one of the statues.
Yeah.
Look like an ape with no hands.
An
Like he had
ape.
his long arms and then his small body.
Oh, that one guy. You know what I think that was? Like, whenever I make Google Slides, it'll stretch an image to fit. Like long ways. See, it's kind of like the TV. You know, you can have your TV where it does like stretch out or more of a square. So. Hey, folks, real quick, let's get our notes.
Wait, hold on. If
Put it
they,
as an actual image.
if they conquered Israel, how did they treat the Jews? Let me guess. Badly.
Well, the thing is, most of the cities in this part of the world gave up pretty quickly, so they were left alone. But I mean, the thing is, yeah, they were treated pretty fine. They're actually not going to be mistreated too much until the Roman times, and then like towards later Roman times, they're gonna have periods of persecution. That's when they're going to have the period of the abomination, when they're going to desecrate the temple, and then again come back and destroy the temple and remove the Ark of the Covenant. And then you're going to have the time where they're going to come in, like the period of the Maccabees, and they're just going to totally slay all the Jews or throw them out. And this is going to be it's what they call the time of the diaspora.
So that's the reason of Hitler.
No,
Oh, God.
no, that's going to come much later.
Yeah.
Here, I'll get the notes for you real quick, kind of over talk. So Festus
He died suicidal.
killed Darius III to become king. Al had him executed. So it didn't work out for him. All right.
I thought he suicided.
No, he didn't. He
Oh,
didn't.
and that was that other guy.
Demosthenes.
Yeah, why did he suicide?
Yeah, Demosthenes. Yeah, I had the timeline messed up, but I told you about his a little sooner than it happened. But yeah, during the Diadoquoid period, he had a poison-filled quill. Apparently, he just kind of mainlined it, and he was no more. All right, so
Harry is not wrong.
I guess so. I mean, note to self: don't carry around a poison pen. All right, further conquest. Woo! Okay, so following Persia. Al took, I'm gonna say Scythia, which is kind of like Afghanistan and Pakistan.
It's so impressive.
One half of India, Arabia, and planned on Spain, North Africa,
They got
and Italy. He wanted all of it. And he's like, I'm going to do this till I'm in my 80s.
But he died.
Yeah, and rumor has it he's still dead to this day.
Are you sure he's dead?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
No, he's secretly conquering North Africa.
So
Jesus brought him back to life.
his death. So
It's you, Jesus, take the wheel.
got ill at 32 years old
That's a world record.
in Babylon.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. Well, maybe, no, it can't
Well,
be.
second is negative 2 seconds.
And passed
Are you serious?
No.
quickly
Like, to beat the world record, you you would.
with no air. Now,
As soon as someone figured out they were pregnant, they were
here's
just
the
like,
thing. He had Alexander, he had a Persian wife, and he also still had a brother. His brother, remember we said, possibly he was mentally retarded. They saw he wasn't fit for the crown. But some people back in Greece wanted to use him as a figurehead to control the empire. His Persian wife was pregnant, and she was about to deliver the baby right before he died. So some powers in here decided to wait and see if it was born a boy or a girl. Because remember, primogeniture, firstborn son gets the crown,
was it a female?
girl doesn't. Well, it actually was a boy. It was a boy. But like I told you, this was a period of assassinations.
So.
And
He
so,
was killed immediately.
at a young age, as a young boy, him and his mother were.
Just so sad.
And
That's-
so
That is heartless.
even his mother, Olympia, would wind up being assassinated. So this is a
It's
period
not like
of
queens
a
have any
lot.
power in this time, and why would you kill her?
Well, she did actually. She halfway ruled Macedonia and much of Greece when Alexander was gone.
Just
But she herself was also doing a lot of assassination. And then eventually she got assassinated.
Yo,
So it was a
Armenia.
whole bunch of that mess.
Wait, Armenia was a thing back then?
Armenia? Well, they didn't call it, I don't know if they called it Armenia back then. I don't remember hearing about Armenians until the Byzantine Empire, but that's just because that doesn't mean it wasn't there, it just means I didn't hear about it, right? But yeah, Armenians could be around for a long time. And poor Armenians, yeah, they're going to face one of the worst genocides in the world right after World War One.
Turkey be like, didn't have.
Yeah, Turkey did not want to have Christians in its country, so they death marched them all the way to Africa and slew like millions of them. So, all right, so the empire after his death. So broke up. Into 4 parts. Led by Al's generals. See,
You ask, did kings ever have a life like all they did and take over other places?
no, they did a lot of feasting and entertainment and stuff like that.
When does what something
They in fact, like if you like study theater, like theater this time becomes more centered for like royal audiences and less for normal people. Like and stuff. And same with art. Art was for people who could afford it for private viewing, and they keep it in the castles instead of letting the people see it and stuff. So he had it had civil wars that broke them apart further. So yeah, that's the gist of it. So but I mean, that's nothing surprising. We've seen that the Greeks, whenever they're not fighting somebody else, they're fighting themselves. So I mean, like, there's no big surprise there. That after Alexander, who was really good at taking stuff, but he fell apart during times of peace. Like we said, he was like a chronic alcoholic, and he. If you remember from the video we watched, he even like killed a friend or two.
What's
He
that?
was just it's 20 XX.
Oh, I thought we already did one.
No, we just finished it. Hey, folks, we're going to end our lecture there. We'll come back Monday. I might not have a lecture on Monday. I think I'm going to give you a reading assignment. But just wait till then. Have a good weekend.
Starter, we have to read.
Why am I still on?
You should always